Hey guys, and welcome to the Carpentry Australia podcast. Today I'm here with Nathan Woolens from Monumental Building Group. So I've been looking forward to this one today because Nathan's done some really great work with modern building design, working also with Build Skills as a part of their industry advisory committee. And yeah, I think today will be a valuable insight into Nathan's thoughts on where the industry is going, where the opportunities are, and learning a bit about your history. So welcome, Nathan.
Hey, thank you very much for that. Honestly, it's great to be here and good to be able to catch up in Melbourne. My first time here, so
yes.
It's pretty exciting, mate. Look, I suppose a little bit about the business and the company and where we sort of came from. So we're about 6.5 years in. As a business, very passionate based. We try to instill that in the team and all of our apprentices. We've recently got our first female apprentice, which is great, and trying to really improve what's going on in the industry as a whole. And push the quality and just teach people, things aren't always going to be price orientated. There is obviously got to be a certain standard that we want to uphold, and we constantly, a big part for us is industry innovation is a massive thing. So we always want to be on the cutting edge. If there's a better way to do it, let's aim for that. Let's constantly push the envelope a little bit to keep everyone else accountable so we all lift up as a whole as an industry. So a little bit about us sort of came through doing a lot of the cladding and external facade side of things, small renovations and stuff like that. Did my certificate 4 at TAFE, got accredited for that. Took that over into the company and just sort of ran with that for a little while, and then we got into a lot of the high-end outdoor entertaining space. Linked up with some legends like EcoDeck and ClickDeck and did a lot of that side of things for a while, just trying to really, I suppose, again, improve the standard and change the stigma around composite decking as a whole, and how do you build an outdoor entertaining area to last 25 years and even some already now 50 years, like how do you get it to that point? Because it doesn't just start with the board, it starts with the frame, so we really fixated on that for a while. From there we obviously led into some really, really cool projects over the time, and we were lucky enough to be heavily involved from a project management perspective and the carpentry perspective of the first 3D printed home in the Southern Hemisphere, which was spearheaded by Nick Holden and the team at Contour 3D, so shout out Nick, absolute legend, and the guys at VersiClad, so John and Claire, they were a partner project together. That was absolutely incredible to see where this industry could go and what the future of building holds, I suppose.
There's a couple of questions. How do you think that the wider industry, will they embrace it? So that's number one.
Excellent.
How does it go in terms of cost and time? And what are the pros and cons?
100%. Excellent questions, man. Really, I think that obviously there was a massive amount of exposure, news, television, social media surrounding that project in particular. There's been a couple others since for the government housing and things like that, which has been great. Look, I think that you can take it one or two ways. I think at every point in time in carpentry and then further in building, there's always been something that's come out, and every old head or every person that does it a certain way has gone, nah, this will never catch on. I've done it this way forever. No one will ever do this. This is nonsense. Like, look at cut-on-site frames to now prefab frames. Back in the day, mate, the first prefab frame would come out, Joe, Bob, Bill, everyone down at the pub and that would have been like, mate, this is nonsense. What a bunch of yahoos. No one's ever going to do a prefab house. It's not real carpentry. Now look at it. It's basically the industry standard, excluding, custom renovations and a select few carpentry crews across the country now that really take it to that next level. I think personally, there's never a bad time to look at alternative ways to build. And at the end of the day, there should be no insecurity in the industry around people looking at alternatives, because without looking at alternatives, you're never going to find a better way. And if anyone out there, any carpenter, any builder says the industry is perfect and that we need to change nothing, they've got no eyes, because there is so much that we could do better, but we just don't necessarily have all of the answers yet. So in my eyes, I think people should try their best to take this concept, is there's so much that we can improve on. Try to not see it as competition or as, taking jobs or taking work away from the trade. There is too much work. there is too high of a demand, like you've said, for housing, for infrastructure, for development. Trade rates are stereotypically, in carpentry specifically, a bit too low, and people are undercharging, underquoting, and they fear that this is then going to cause that a problem. But I've never met a carpenter that is actually a 3D printer. You know what I mean? I've never met a bricklayer that is actually a 3D printer, and vice versa. It's not the same thing. So you talk then, we can answer a bit more about timelines and costing. So costing typically, obviously the target demographic is to be cheaper due to a shorter amount of labour on site and fixed cost materials. That's fine. Again, it's a different build concept. A lot of it is fixated or pivots on it being an ideal scenario. So not every home or every job site or every location will be suitable for this. It's big machinery for the most part. It's serviceability based on material access and logistics of moving the machines, moving the materials there. Everything like that stipulates a lot of, all right, where is this going to be a good solution? So if we needed 100 houses in a row and they all needed to be identical and there was no variations, no client, no changes, it makes logically more sense to do the lower cost, faster option where there's not really any money to be made for a tradie anyway, in framing up cookie cutter homes where there's zero margin, they want it done cheap. I don't understand the logic behind carpenters grovelling that they want that work anyway. You're not going to make any money. You're not going to get any return on all of your time. And people say, oh, but it's work. And I go, yeah, but at what cost? If people are going to demand to pay less for scale or multiple volume size projects, I say that's a solution and a market perfect suited to a lower cost 3D option. Because at the end of the day, there's always going to be demand for quality building from carpenters. And if you're doing quality carpentry, the demand is not going anywhere. Because again, it's not a perfect shoe. You can't put it on every scenario and it fits. It's just got a market where there's a demand for volume at low cost, and it's always going to be there. So it's either they do something about it and they provide a solution, or we just go in circles and nothing changes.
So can you tell me a bit more, Nathan, about, so the margin isn't necessarily there in this style of home and developing.
Yeah.
And then if we've got some carpenters who think, how am I going to make money if I move into this direction? What's your thoughts on that?
So I suppose people sort of see it as, well, we were the carpenter on that project, but that was a very different build. It wasn't a standardised what they will be. This was a show home, a display, this is how far you can take it build. You know, we had 4 metre ceilings, we had floor to ceiling curved subway tiles, we had imported shower screens from China. You know what I mean? Like, we were not building a cookie cutter government housing project. We were building a masterpiece of this is what you can do with a 3D architecturally designed home, but that is not their market that they're trying to do day in, day out. They're not a building company, they're a technology company that's providing a building solution. So if you put it that way, that's like people getting frustrated with Paslow for upgrading the nail gun. It's like they're not coming to site and shooting the gun. They're providing you a better tool to build a better finish. It's just a solution to a different problem. So I think that there's always going to be naysayers, there's always going to be people that take it the wrong way, but my only advice would be to try to see it from an open mind of there's always going to be a need for a different solution. And in my opinion, like we've said, the margin's not there in high velocity, small, zero cost homes where there's not the budget. So rather than people going bust, doing the work less than their cost price and not making enough money to pay the bills and cover their overheads, why not find a solution where not only does the project get built, trades don't lose money building it, and everyone wins. You just have to then realise that in order to make money and to do the right thing, people have to build to a high standard, which should be no issue. for anyone, in my opinion.
I want to sort of hone in on the project you did in New South Wales.
Yes.
So let's say someone watching this has no idea. They've seen a couple of ads on Instagram where there's concrete building the walls, and that's the extent of their understanding.
Yeah, 100%.
So again, a couple of questions. How did you come to get involved? And what were some of the things that surprised you, and some of the things you learnt that are different to the norm?
100%. So great question again. So essentially, I'm a bit of a relationships person, you know. I love the chat. I love getting to know people, and I sort of pride myself on having the same person to everyone.
Yeah.
So I can get along with people pretty easily. And the thing was, I knew the builder pre-existing to that project. He was a contact of mine that we'd done work together in the past, and we'd recently done some work at one of his own developments. He had a duplex that he was building. He said, "Hey, Nate," he has a very high opinion of our quality, which in my opinion rightfully so, but at the same time we earned that. So we'd worked together in the past, we didn't just walk in off the street. And then we basically went to do a project for him. He was discussing with me, I'm designing this at the moment with the clients. No one's done one before. We're writing the codes, we're figuring out all the problems. They've been working on this for over a year on the theory side, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. And then there's that much testing that's gone into it in a factory. It's not like we just rocked up and they're putting dingo bags into a concrete mixer and hope it goes well. Like there's so much science behind it. Pretty much they were looking at trying to find a carpentry contractor that's multi-skilled and can take on any aspect of a job. And they needed someone that was willing to challenge themselves and do a project where there was not necessarily any set parameter of this is what you do here, this is what you do next, this is the next process, call this person, you find out the step. You had to troubleshoot, design and get things engineered to suit that build that hadn't been done before. So that was where I was like, mate, we can build anything you want, no problem, I'd love to be involved. And then we did the pricing, we had some chats, talked to the clients, and then bang, happy days, we all got together and it all worked out. And essentially we were contracted to do the subfloor scope of the first floor. So the ground floor, to provide a bit of clarity I suppose, is essentially similar to a double skin cavity brick wall. So you have an external layer, a cavity, and then an internal layer. Very similar to masonry. There's no wall framing or anything like that. It's just skin, cavity, skin. And that cavity can get bigger and smaller with the contours of the wall. It's subject to whatever you input into the machine. They then insulate all of those cavity areas, run their services, etc. for the ground floor, do cutouts, everything similar process to standard, and then we build on top. So we basically plate the top of that, all to engineer specs, and then the floor system for the upstairs. Then it becomes much of a conventional building. So there is obviously limitations again to the current technology. So height, like these builds are 4 meters high for a ground floor. Bloody tall. That's like ridge height for some houses. And they were doing that for a ground floor wall. So these buildings ended up, I think, being 8.5 meters high to the ridge, step level site, very difficult access, but they made it work. And to do it when no one's done it on such a difficult site on a main road in Woolooware in the Shire, pretty crazy, pretty impressive. So we basically started there at the same time that they were printing, and it was incredible to see. Like you see it like on the internet or whatever in Europe. It's done a lot in Europe, in the States a bit. It's taken off a bit more. There's companies doing it internationally, but the quality, in my opinion, is far better here because they've put so much work into the science of it all. And look, at the end of the day, I think too that we came into that project pretty open-minded, knowing that it would be difficult and challenges and all the rest of it. And then we went from there, did another system of, they call them, there's many names for them, like precast panels or SIP panels, or in this case it was a VersiClad wall system, which is another innovation where you're going to have either double OSB, a 90mm foam, like styrofoam core, and then an FC internal sheet that's all pre-cut, pre-manufactured off-site. So you have all your walls with the window openings, door headers, everything already done. Rocks up, and then you put your plates in according to your setup like you would any frame. Then the walls were just click it together. Like it was the most innovative build ever. And it's incredible to see. There's a lot of custom home guys out there And if anyone wants to know, you'll have to message me about it, because offhand it's just too much. But there's a lot of custom home guys out there in Australia now that are doing like precast panels of, SIP with OSB and OSB. They're taking a lot of inspiration from the US and from Europe, because in all honesty, they build a lot better than we do. Air tightness, performance rating, moisture, water ingress through window openings and penetrations. There's so much room to improve what we do here. And it's not to say that we're doing it intentionally. It's just, no one is perfect. Building is not perfect. And I'm always hungry to improve. And I think that's the best mindset you can take to it, is just improve your practices within your business. Don't necessarily worry about what everyone else is doing. Don't get in the price race. Don't, cut costs, and understand your numbers, do your pricing, really get a good software behind you, which we'll talk about later. Do a good software system where you can purely understand what makes lights turn on for your company, and then you're pricing with confidence, not guessing, not hoping. You understand, if I'm going to do job A, it's going to take me X amount of hours for X amount of guys, my cost is Y. I know exactly if I'm going forwards or backwards. Straight away, you're in control. You can negotiate that value of that job. And it's difficult for people who are younger and earlier into the industry to understand that if you're going to lose on a contract or lose on a job, it's better not to do that job, because you're going to go backwards anyway. And people say, but I need work. And I go, yeah, but you're not making any money. You're going backwards. So if I said to you, do you want to come work for me today for 12 hours and you pay me?
Yeah, it wouldn't be too
you go, I'm confused, what's the question? You go, I don't understand, makes no sense. But people are blatantly and unknowingly doing exactly that. And it's just a lack of education. And look, maybe a little bit of everyone wants to be their own boss. Everyone thinks it's lovely and sunshine and rainbows. But the truth is that if you spend 1, 2, 3 years going backwards, it's very pointless to do it. So I think there's a lot around that side of the education where we can work on our own industry first before we worry about what everyone else is doing or what other innovations are coming. But yeah, that project realistically is something that I think is going to be the future of some aspects of building, not every, but some. And there needs to be education around the carpentry side of it 100%, because for instance they've done another project where it was a 3D printed house and it was a conventional trussed roof, and the printer's not going to put the trussed roof up, you know what I mean? So we're not necessarily closing the door. There's still going to be internal works, there's still going to be gyprocking, there's still going to be landscaping, concrete driveways, etc. done. There's still work to be done. Trades that fixate on where they're not getting work, instead of worrying about, okay, well, where can I get work? Or what are my avenues of leads? Or what do I want to specialise in? What am I good at? What are my rates? I think fix your own sort of business, and then everything else will happen. Because at the end of the day, it's going to come whether we want it to or not. We may as well just be supportive of the fact that they're trying to solve a problem that is within our industry, and hopefully it will lead to, more houses going up, more building, more development, which is better for every other trade and all of us to benefit from in the end, realistically. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah. So we spoke a little bit earlier about some of the pros and cons, looking at the way that we're headed with 3D and modular and all those sorts of things. So can you talk us through some of the differences between the conventional building in terms of timing, and talk us through what was the full scope of that build and how long did it take? And what were some of the things that surprised you most?
Print time of the ground floor from a 3D aspect, I believe from memory, was about 17 days, and that's a duplex. 3.9 or 4 metres high, slope blocks, a split level, all internal and external double skin walls. So it works out 8.5 days each at that height, with no scaffolding needed, no manual labour, automated, with guys on site obviously feeding the material.
How many people on site with operating and...
So typically they can do it with 2 to 3 people.
Okay.
Which is very minimal. Yeah, and then in terms of the modular aspect, for instance, with the first floors, we did all the external, internal walls, which is framing, insulation, and sheeting. Takes about 12 hours a house, and that's 120 square metre space, internal and external walls, 3 to 4 bedrooms, and that's all, like I said, your external OSB bracing, your framework, your full insulation of internal and external, and your internal wall linings, done. Ready for rough-in, pre-roof, finished.
Yeah.
So it's very quick. Modular, in my opinion, there's a lot of things that are incredible about it and that could be really, really good for the industry. Just at this point in time, I don't know if the demand is there or the client awareness. And it's also about having builders that are willing to, learn that aspect and learn that side of things. So in my opinion, if people are keen and they want to do it, there's still so much education online. We have so much on the internet these days that you can readily access and learn about, because the timelines are quicker, but it's then about educating the other trades. So educating your electrician, how to rough in, what cables to use, the difficulties or challenges that come with working with a modular pre-insulated panel, because you've got no cavity. So you've got to work around that. You've got plumbing services that you've got to plan for and think about ahead of time. Internal wall studs for mounting. There's typically, you put either studs and blockings in for a wall mount vanity or a TV. You've got to think of that ahead of time, and you've got to have that pre-incorporated into that panel. So there is a lot of education around these building practices that I think people need to, put a bit of time into first, and then they can make an educated decision. I'm interested in maybe doing a bit of that. Like me, myself, I'm always interested to do something new because I find the challenge invigorating, I find it exciting, and I think personally that it's the best way to grow.
Yeah. You
may not love all of it, you might go, that's the best about every single aspect.
Yeah.
Every carpenter and every trippy's got things that they don't enjoy doing about a job.
Yeah.
And that's what leads to this sort of modern day carpentry now, is everyone's a specialised person. So you've got a guy that only does fix out. You've got a guy that only does prefab frames. You've got a guy that only does cladding and facades. You've got a guy that only does decks. And then you've got guys that only do fire doors. Only do one facet. And there's nothing wrong with it. I don't object to it, because there is like an easier aspect of the lifestyle of specialising. And there's so much volume these days that there's sort of a need for it. But it does make it difficult on the apprentices, I find, or like the younger people in the trade, to learn properly if they're not under someone who can actually skill them in a wider variety of things. So I have apprentices that have come from pure framing backgrounds. They're great, they've got all the basics down pat, but they might be second or third year in, and they don't know how to do anything outside of that.
Yeah, limited.
And then they need that education over the next year and a half or 2 years of their trade to really be able to call themselves a carpenter as a whole. And I know guys who are mates of mine who have only done prefab frames for 12 years, since their first year. They've never done anything else, that's it. And that's all they'll do, probably until they retire, which is fine. But it's like you have to be willing to understand that if you're a young person or an apprentice, or you're thinking about doing an apprenticeship, those 4 years are critical to your development as a chippy or as an aspiring builder down the line, all that sort of thing. It's critical that you understand that what you learn in that time will often determine what your options are later. Because, it can be quite disappointing for people when they're a tradesman or a subcontractor and they can't actually get the work, or they can't get an opportunity because they don't have the skill set.
So you believe that it's up to each of us as individuals to be open to change and growth, because with growth of your expertise comes opportunity.
100%. 110%, I couldn't agree more with that. I think diversification, multi-skilling, it comes back to the build skill stuff too, like that we're talking about at the moment, in the background about, the course pathway, and should it be multi-skilled, should it be single-skilled, should it all be segregated, or should we continue rolling more things into it? And my current outlook on all of that sort of thing with the training curriculum and stuff was that it's at a point now where it's almost hard enough to get young apprentices and things like that to learn such a wide set of skills if they work in a uni-skilled company. Like they get a week or 2 weeks training on different facets of carpentry, but they spend 3.5, 4 years doing one. It's a bit of it's easy to be critical of the industry, but that's what I say. I just sort of worry about what we do within our company and our business, which is everything. We do our best to train people in every aspect, all the way through to roofing, insulated pergolas and outer and tone areas and new products and new systems, because we like the challenge. And growth comes from the uncomfortable. So if you're not in your comfort zone and you're challenging yourself, that's when you're really going to grow. That's when you develop as a tradesman, as a carpenter, as a builder, as any tradesperson. That's when you're going to really find out, okay, I can do that. I'm capable of that. And then you make your educated decision. I don't enjoy it, so I might not do it. Or I don't mind it. If the opportunity comes up, I'll do it. So then that's when you're educated and you're making those decisions based off actual experience, not off guesswork. So, big thing.
I'm curious, Nathan, about your view, because you touched on this before, about why some carpenters, and the context you gave was, would I work for you for a day and pay you? It's a good insight, because sometimes if I feel like I'm busy, I'm working, I'm building my reputation, but I'm not making any money. Yeah. And there's a lot of carpenters out there, like our mission is to support every carpenter in the country to help them stay in the game.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of people who maybe they weren't academics at school, maybe their learning style, they got distracted easy, but when they had their hands on the tools, they loved what they did. So they found their passion, but then they get so far on their journey and they just can't stay in the game. So the question is, what do you think is the reason why so many people drop out, and what would your advice be for somebody like you're talking about, sort of technology and all these things, and it just scares the heck out of me.
Yeah.
I go, I can't even use a bloody computer.
Yeah.
Drawing it right back to that early stage, someone who loves, you know, they want to do good, they've got their hearts in the right place. What would be some of the initial things that would help encourage them to stay on the course and make some minor changes for the better?
I think something that a lot of people sort of don't think is out there is that there is a lot of companies out there that are really good to learn within and really vast with what they do. They're out there. There are heaps of them. And at the end of the day, I think that a big thing is everyone in some way, shape or form, they want to race out on their own, and when it doesn't work out, they blame the industry. But the truth is, truth is that working for yourself is extremely challenging, even if you really have a good run with it. It's never easy. It's not like, smooth sailing with a beautiful work-life balance. It's challenging. And I think that some people need to be honest with themselves and reflect on what's important to them first and foremost, because there is absolutely nothing wrong with working within a team or being a leading hand or being someone's great tradesman or a gut apprentice. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's a great shoe for some people. And I think a lot of people think, but I want to be in charge, I want to run my own jobs. And the truth is that if you're not willing to sacrifice a lot personally, that's often not possible. And they just think you can't have it all, sadly. So I think that one thing that we can do is provide better access to systems and software that make it a lot more streamlined and a lot more simplistic for the everyday subcontractor or the everyday company or carpentry team to look after their back end or their background stuff within the business. That's critical, because a lot of guys, they sign up for something that they think is everything that they need, but then there's 5 or 6 things that they have no idea how to manage. If that's the case, you probably don't have the software or the systems in place that you actually need. You have the bare minimum, which is probably invoices and quotes, and you probably don't even quote if you're in that boat. So you're just sending invoices, and then all of the rest of this stuff falls through the cracks. Job management, scheduling, client database, inquiry and lead tracking. So where's this person up to? What did I need to do next for that lead? Have I quoted them? Have I scheduled them for an appointment? It is a business. At the end of the day, like if you ring your, you ring your GP, hey mate, I need to come and see you, I've got a sore hand. No worries mate, yeah, I'll book you in for 9 a.m. on Tuesday the 17th. Right, you rock up at 9 a.m. on Tuesday the 17th, you go in, the GP's got no shirt on and he's working on someone else and it's all frantic and it's a mess, and you go, hey mate, you booked me for 9 a.m. on the 17th. Sorry mate, I didn't even write that down anywhere. Put on a stick of timber and then I shoved it in the wall. I'm really sorry mate. Oh shit, can you come back in a week?
Yeah.
Mate, my hand's been sore for a week already. I've waited a week to see it. Sorry man, I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
You wouldn't go to that GP and you think this guy's a madman.
Yeah.
We're not going to him. Why do people expect their trade business to run any better if they have no system and no process to look after their potential or their actual client? It's just madness.
So a big one from what you said there is, which stands out to me, makes a lot of sense, is there's this illusion that, or not necessarily illusion, but this belief that if I run my own business, there's a sense of pride in that. But you made a comment to say a lot of sacrifice. What do you mean by sacrifice?
Well, to be honest, a lot of the time you're not going to be able to pick and choose what days you want to work and what times suit you, and when it's a good time to take a phone call and when it's a good time to visit to a job that has to get done in order to get a final progress payment. Because at the end of the day, being the owner or the business operator or the director, it means that you are the person that is at the end of the road. So the payment, if it needs, something to be completed to get that final progress payment, it's up to you to either delegate or go out of your way to make sure that happens so that your client's happy and you've delivered on what you promised. If you have a meeting that you have to get to in order to attend to a job and they only are available on a Saturday at 9:30 a.m. and it's an hour and a half away. If you don't go to that meeting, you potentially don't have work. You won't be paid on Monday, you won't have a job start, you won't know what materials you need, you haven't measured the site. What are you going to do? You have to go to that meeting. Then that's, I'm sorry, can't make it that day, whatever it is the case may be. I think there's a little bit, not glorification, but there's a little bit of a false sense of reward around how easy or difficult it may be to run a business, and that there's a bad stigma around working for someone. I think there's just working for the wrong person is the issue. Because I like to think that my team, so we have a team of 6, including myself, we have a leading hand, a 4th year, a tradesman, a 3rd year and a 2nd year. So we have quite a decent sized team. And I like to think that they all go to work very happy every day and they go home very happy every day. I'm very transparent, I'm very fair, and we try to make it a place where people want to come to work. They paid on time, they get incentivised to work well, they get paid for their travel time. I buy the trucks and provide the fuel and all this sort of thing. Like it's a very fair relationship because I'm expecting your time, but you need to be rewarded for that.
Yeah.
And if you have an issue, I always say, if you have an issue, come to me, we can discuss it. And I'd rather we talk it through, we come to a solution. If you need something, let's talk about it. It's a bit of an open door sort of policy, and I feel like nowadays there's a lot of companies that are just do it my way, or else no, it's not happening at all. And it's like, it's okay to say, I want to go somewhere else. I think I want to learn a different way, or I want to learn a new thing. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're an apprentice, because I think that's your critical time to be in the best environment, under the best people to learn. Because the harsh truth is that I think they should be telling people in TAFE or in on-site training, whatever you may do, is that after that 4 years, a lot of guys sadly don't expect to pay you to learn. They expect to pay you to do a job to a really high standard with little to no support. That's the expectation, and a lot of guys sort of finish that 4th year and they don't really know what's going on, and it frazzles, it's scary and it's intimidating. And I think that there's a lack of preparation for people. So for instance, when our guys go into their 4th year, they've still got their time on site to do, I speak with them and I say, look, this year is more about your growth as a person to transition into being in charge of a job, into having some responsibility and maybe training that 2nd year in a couple of different tasks. I'm not saying I'm off to Hawaii for 6 months, good luck. I'm just saying that I think this year is less about me spoon feeding you and more about me letting you show me what your capability is. Are you, wanting to run jobs, or are you wanting to be a team member? Do you want to train staff, or do you just want to go to work every day? And then I can facilitate your skill set to what the business needs, and we can be upfront and transparent. Whereas a lot of people, they get treated the same from 1st to 4th. They're just a helper, and they're a set of hands, and do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. For the whole 4 years, it's never, what do you think we should do? How would you fix this problem? Or what's the next step? There's no training. It's just work for money, work for money, work for money, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So it puts them in a bit of a tough spot, and I don't necessarily have the solution. I don't have here it is here, but at the end of the day, I think it's something that needs to be talked about in order to bring awareness to the fact that apprentices that are out there in a situation where maybe they don't know is this what the trade is, they can start to think amongst themselves or talk amongst others and say, I think I can probably learn more somewhere else. I'm a little bit overdoing the same thing every day for the past 18 months. There's no better time than in that apprenticeship to look for a change. I had 5 different employers in my apprenticeship and it was over 3 years. You know what I mean? That was a lot of changes, but I learned so much. I had to adapt so quickly. I had to become a useful asset in 5 different teams in a very short period of time and develop those relationships. And at the end of the day, it opened my eyes to many different things in the industry. I had a renovations boss who was a fully licensed builder, and we did everything from start through to finish. And then I had a cladding and eaves boss, we only did facades. And then I had a frames boss, we only did frames. And then I had a boss that did clad, facade and fix out. We only did that. Point was, I got exposed to a lot in that early period of my trade where I never felt out of my depth when I turned up to a job when I was out on my own. I thought, what's going on here? I was like, I know what's going on here. I've been here before. This is what's happening. This is the process. And I'm comfortable. And at the end of the day, 4 years is a long time, but there's a lot to learn.
What's your thoughts on conflict in the industry?
I think that a lot of that comes back to, again, it all starts with a bit of education around what does running a business actually mean and how do I set it up where I don't have issues that I'm not prepared for. So there's a saying that the prevention's always better than the cure. So don't cure the problem, prevent it.
Yeah.
So if you're doing work of any value that you wouldn't want to lose that money, you should have in place something in writing, whether it be simple for entry-level people in your quotes, or whether you consult a lawyer and get a small, simple contract put together. There are industry ones available for free, but they won't be tailored to suit your business. So if you think that there's something specific about you, that you're a pretty particular business or you need something tailored, the way I get asked this question a lot actually, the way I put it is, how many times would you want to lose $10,000? Probably none, right? How many times would you want to lose $20,000? Probably none. So why are you going to wait for it to happen to do something about it? Is the best way I can put it. Is if you're feeling like you're engaged in contracts and doing work of an amount of money that you don't want to lose, put the necessary legal steps in place and in writing for every job so that you don't have a fear that what if they decide not to pay? What am I going to do? Because you need to have that set out, again, to be a proper, professional, efficient business. And that's the best advice I give to people of any trade.
And if somebody's conflict averse, like not in terms of somebody not paying you, but quite often things are changing now. You mentioned you have a female apprentice now, and there's a bit of a shift in terms of conduct and what's appropriate, what's not. But sometimes you encounter people who are a bit rough around the edges and a bit aggressive.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think you just have to have a very clear standpoint and call it out straight away. You can't let it happen, you can't overlook it, you can't say, they're the client, I can't say anything. You have to stand up for your team, yourself, whatever the scenario is. And as soon as something, or an altercation or a disagreement or something that's not right is said or brought up, you have to straight away be onto that. Address it, call it out, and say, listen, you can't speak like that, or you can't say that, or we don't say those sorts of things. Respect the team, or else we're going to stop doing the work and we'll be gone. We'll leave straight away. You need to be willing to withdraw yourself from any situation, because especially if you're running, I suppose, a company or a business that has multiple employees, their well-being, mental health, and sort of workspace is more important than the financial aspect of it of 1 hour or 1 day or 2 hours.
Yeah, great point.
Because that's the sacrifice you make when you employ people, is you're going to put them first.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they give you 110%. You should do the same for them. So that's pretty much my input on that.
Beautiful. All right. So Nathan, any final things you'd like to share or raise?
No, not too much, mate.
Yeah.
Really, I'm just excited for what the future holds for the industry, and really getting to connect a bit more with you guys, and hopefully, we can continue this trend and have a little bit more to chat about in the near future when we do a few more exciting things. But I'm really keen to see what the rest of this year brings. We're only halfway. There's so much to go, and mate, 2026 is going to be even crazier. So can't wait.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, mate.
No worries.
It's been a pleasure.